Welcome into Northside Territory, Foul Territory Network's Cubs podcast. I'm Sahadev Sharma with my partner Patrick Mooney. We are your Cubs beat writers over at The Athletic. Patrick, I'm feeling rejuvenated and rested after a week in Vegas because it is Friday morning and I've been home now for about 12-ish hours and a little over that, I guess. And I went to bed at a reasonable hour, which is not the case at the GM meetings, especially when they're in Vegas. Uh, for those who don't know, the GM meetings and the winter meetings, uh, it's great for what Patrick and I do. There's a lot of people to run into and get information from and chat with. We see other writers who we're friendly with. So the mornings are spent like walking around a lobby and hoping to run into someone. And you have some meetings that are like kind of intentionally set up, like whether it's talking to Jed or Carter, or NL, the NL, they have big gatherings for everyone. And then the evenings are doing a lot of the same that you do in the morning, but then you have a drink in your hand. Then then you repeat that from Monday through Wednesday night, and the sleep is 4, 5, 6 hours. If you're lucky, you get to 6. It's not a lot of sleep. It's not a lot of rest. But we got a lot of information this week. Absolutely.
That was actually a good description because I've tried to explain like what these meetings are like to people who have normal jobs, and it really is kind of absurd. Of like, drop your bag off in the media room, grab your notepad, your recorder, and a pen, and basically just wander. Just keep walking until you bump into someone. Sometimes you're looking for people. Sometimes you do send the text and. You're able to meet up in a more formal, arranged manner, other than just the pop-ins or the bump-ins. And yeah, Vegas is not my favorite place for the GM meetings. I like when we go to Scottsdale or Carlsbad in Southern California, and you get the nice sunshine and a chance to do your wandering outside, and there's fewer entrances and exits for these executives and agents. Whereas Vegas, just a lot of indoor time, very little natural light. I think even in my hotel room, it felt like the windows were tinted like pink and purple. Like you're just kind of ready to leave by Thursday. But like you said last show, like in order to cover Major League Baseball's hot stove, you kind of have to be there. It gives you a great kind of roadmap for what might be coming ahead. And it's not just the individual team you cover, there are kind of league-wide things going on, certain trends or like names, personalities that are, starting to pop. And Cubs are going to be on a lot of them. I think we should get out of the business of sort of setting expectations for fans, because looking at social media, which was my fault, it seems like certain people are kind of riding the waves on like this name or that name or this quote, from Jed, or this quote from Carter. But this was definitely not one of those, which we've covered before, of the Cubs kind of being handcuffed to be like, what are we doing here? Like they were meeting with, all the big agencies. They're not ruling. They're kind of ruling a couple of things out. We'll get into that later. But for the most part, very open-minded, expected to be very active. And then it's kind of up to you. You can use your own imagination. We can't forget like how this franchise operates, generally speaking, in a very conservative manner on the business and baseball side.
No. Sorry, Patrick, you're kind of you slowed down there. I'm not sure if you're connected for me. I lost you, so I didn't hear the end of what you said, but no worries. I think what's interesting is we can't rule out Boris clients for once. Like how often do we feel like obviously they got the deal done with Cody Bellinger. That was a unique circumstance, but There's talk of Tatsuya Amai, the Japanese pitcher who really dominated in Japan this past season, and it's kind of been 2 years of really impressive performance from him. We'll see what kind of contract he gets if it gets into this. Yamamoto is obviously a special case. Uh, I don't think we need to compare him directly to. Yeah, we'll let
Scott
Boris.
did. Yeah.
We'll let Scott Boris do those comparisons. I'm not sure if the scouts I've talked to would do the same. That's fine. That doesn't mean he's not good. It just all depends on what the price range is here. If it gets to like these crazy levels, if it starts pushing deeper into nine figures, like maybe if it touches nine figures, the Cubs are interested. I don't know for sure on that, but I'd be surprised if it continues to climb much past that. If the Cubs are aggressive there, but we keep hearing Dylan Cease's name, and I think when the offseason kind of was approaching, I think you and I were like, oh yeah, he's perfect fit, but will the Cubs be doing that? Are the Cubs, we were hesitant to really feel strongly about it. I think we got that kind of, people were telling us from all different directions that, don't rule that out. He makes a lot of sense in a lot of different ways for this team.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great point. The Cubs have obviously done business with Scott Boras over the years. I mean, Matthew Boyd is a Scott Boras client. But, our reporting leads us to believe that the Cubs are kind of aiming higher than that mid-range tier. Nothing against Matthew Boyd, who was an all-star this year, one of the best pitchers in the National League for a long stretch this year. But he got what, 2 years and just under 30 million? Like, the Cubs are open to kind of bigger ideas here. And this goes back to what you asked Jed Hoyer in Las Vegas. Like, what's the calculus on qualifying offers? They're not ruling that out. They're talking with Scott Boras, who also represents Ranger Suarez and Zach Gallen this offseason. Like, there are several names that could make sense here. We got into it in the Athletic, and Sahadev on one a different San Diego Padre.
I'm sorry, Patrick. Yet again, like right at the end there, you like I heard everything until the end.
I literally teed you up there, like Michael King. What do you got?
Oh yeah, Michael King is very interesting. Obviously, converted to starting pitching recently, a couple years ago with the Yankees. Really solid stuff when he's healthy. Look, the Cubs know he had a shoulder injury. Everyone knows that, but I think they're pretty high on him. It sounds like there are some people within the organization that like what he could do. I think you can look at what they've done with certain pitchers to keep them healthy. Injuries are inevitable with pitchers. So you can't just say like they're masters at keeping guys healthy. They obviously had some injury issues this year. Justin Steele with the elbow and some lower body stuff, obviously with Tyone and Shota Imanaga. But I mean, looking back on it, the Cubs do have pretty good history of late of avoiding arm injuries. I'm gonna jinx the Cubs by saying that. Like if there was an executive sitting here right now, he'd be yelling at me for suggesting such a thing. But I think even the Soroka trade did not work out. Michael Soroka did not perform as they had hoped with them. His velocity was down when they got him, and then he was instantly hurt. I think they felt like they found they identified exactly like what he looked like when he was at his best, and they found the right program to get him back to that spot as far as stuff. And his velocity came back when he came when he returned to the mound for the Cubs, his velocity jumped 2-3 ticks from what it was when he was ending his time with Washington and in that first outing with the Cubs. The results weren't there. So you don't want to say this is a one-to-one comparison, but I think they look at shoulder injuries. I think they feel like they have some I guess identifiers, like things that they can see in a delivery and mechanics, something that's happening, and they understand it. They feel like they have a good understanding of how to work with the guys to get them to specific, like get specific results out of them and keep them healthy. I think he's a really interesting name because when he's healthy, you've seen what like he's a two, maybe a borderline one. Like I think there was a point where he was getting like Cy Young consideration when he was healthy and at his best. And if you can keep him there, that's worth giving up a pick for a couple years. To what I don't know what a deal for Michael King looks like, but after Dylan Cease, he's a pretty good name to go after.
Yeah, and there are so many names out there that they have to be heavily involved in the pitching market, and that is part of why, as we wrote, the Kyle Tucker buzz is just not really there surrounding the Cubs. There are many reasons why, but one of them is the supply on the market, whether it's free agency, possible trades. Like there's just a lot of ways for the Cubs to get better on the pitching side, and on the position player side, after Tucker, realistically, knowing how this team operates, there's not like a ton of levers to pull there, and that's kind of how they look at it. We could disagree. You could say, obviously, if they spent like the Mets or the Dodgers, the Phillies, then yeah, go get. You would have signed Alex Bregman in spring training, right? So, like,
right.
I don't know if I think everyone expects Kyle Schwarber to go back to the Phillies, and it's hard to kind of fit a DH long term, like just not how the Cubs kind of roll.
Yeah,
we're just
those would be the
like,
names, right? It's Schwarber and then like Pete Alonso, willingness to maybe be DH. Like those are the names you'd say, but like, do they want to invest the type of money that it would take to get pitcher or hitters like that, like that have no defensive versatility? That's not the Cubs' MO.
Yeah, and that's why this is what we wrote, what we're going to keep talking about, what we're going to keep reporting on is just pitching, and more pitching.
Absolutely. We'll take a break and come back and talk more pitching.
Kratz Pop Quiz. What has 35 grams of protein, 6 grams of fiber, 27 essential vitamins and minerals, comes in excellent flavors like, of course, chocolate, vanilla, but chocolate peanut butter, my favorite, no added sugar, gluten-free, under $5 per meal, and is ready to drink.
Go out the house, get yourself a Huel. Look at you. You even have one right there. Ready to smack that, John? Chocolate peanut butter, chocolate, and vanilla. Deliciosos.
Also, there is a new daily greens ready to drink, 42 vitamins, minerals, and superfoods. Only 25 calories on that one, 4 grams of fiber. There's flavors like blueberry, apple, peach. Huel makes healthy eating simple. They also just launched into Target stores nationwide. Try both products today with 15% off your purchase for new customers with the code FOUL at huel.com/FOUL. Use that code FOUL and fill out the post-checkout survey to help support FT.
As exciting as it may be for the Cubs to maybe be shopping at the very top of the pitching market, perhaps, or at least interested and in the rumors legitimately, they're not going to go out and sign Edwin Diaz to the monster deal that he's going to get. I think Ken Rosenthal, our colleague at The Athletic, had an article about him. It sounds like there's a lot of teams that could be interested in Edwin Diaz, which just tells me all the more reason why the Cubs, that's just not how they do business when it comes to relievers. Look, there's a Devin Williams, Craig Counsell connection. I think it does make sense. I think you and I both felt like that makes sense in some way, but then you start talking about the money. He's going to have a good market. unless that craters, I just don't see that happening either. Like those are the types of guys that would get people excited in the reliever market. But the Cubs have put together good bullpens without getting anyone excited over the years. So it's certainly possible that they could do that. But I do feel like they need to go get someone that you feel some sense of stability with. And one thing that we came away from after talking to Jed and Carter this week was they're not going to be afraid to they may not, they're not going to give out any crazy deals, but multi-year deals, maybe we see honestly, as I think about this, Patrick, I don't even remember the last time they gave out a multi-year deal, like actually signed one for a reliever. It's probably not as long ago as I think, but it just feels like it's very rare.
Off the top of my head, I think Steve Cishek might have gotten a 2-year deal. That was obviously several years ago. A couple managers. Kimbrel, for sure. That's a good call. I mean, in terms of the overall number, I don't think they've come close to that, right?
Yeah.
So you look at this like they got an opportunity to, they can offer an opportunity to close, which is big. If you're willing to go beyond 1 year, you have a manager has a very good reputation for preserving pitchers' energy and trying to conserve their health. What's been a pitcher's ballpark over the last couple of years. And yeah, I mean, us reading between the lines here is like not an Edwin Diaz contract, probably not another Tanner Scott type offer out there. That did not work out for the Dodgers, at least in year one, although they still won the World Series. So what do they care? But if you're willing, to go 2 years, and I don't know if 3 years might be kind of be stretching it a bit, but if you put some dollar, I don't know, if you put the high AAV on there, the way they've done with certain pitchers and position players, I think they can make some pretty compelling offers.
Yeah, I mean, one name that we heard, while walking around the lobby a few times, I believe, was Pete Fairbanks. He can close. We both did read that interesting article. There was a note about him in Ken's article about cold weather, and he has some issues, some circulation issues. I can't remember exactly how it was phrased, but his fingertips, his fingers go a little numb when it gets cold and he loses feel. That's not ideal for Chicago, but I'm unclear on how much that really impacts him and how much it really changes the way he pitches. I don't know if that impacts the way the Cubs look at him, but we have heard that that's someone that makes sense for them, and he has closing experience, and that's exactly the type. Maybe you don't go the very tippy top tier of relievers, but like they did in I hesitate to bring him up, but I want to. Oh, geez, I almost called him Ryan Helsley. Ryan Presley. Ryan Presley was the experienced closer that they got to start last season. Look, it didn't work out. It wasn't. It wasn't as bad as Hector Neris, but it didn't work out, and that's 2 years in a row that they've gone with the veteran that didn't work out. I think Pete Fairbanks is different. He's had success very recently, and he still it seems like he still has plenty left in the tank. If they can get someone like that, I think it's important. Fairbanks is just one name, but you get one like that, and then 4 or 5 like the Brad Keller swings, the Caleb Thielbar. Thielbar was a guaranteed deal. Keller, a non-roster invite. Like you get like 4 or 5 of these guys, and 2 or 3 hit. That's a home run. Like the last offseason was a home run for them. Like they signed there's probably guys that we've already forgotten about. There's Presley, but there's probably a few others that they brought in, and they hit on Keller, Thielbar, and then they end up getting Pomerantz. Those are like great jobs by them, figuring those guys, identifying those guys, and then it working out is a little bit of luck. So you need the luck to go in your favor. You need the guys to stay healthy and all that stuff, but you don't have to just spend a ton of money here. But I do think it's important to bring in a veteran that you can kind of trust.
I think we're also already expecting some spillover from the rotation. Now, Shota Imanaga, our understanding is as probably leaning towards declining the qualifying offer. That he obviously went into this thinking he could beat 2 years, $30.5 million. I think kind of the endless appetite for more pitching probably helps. There were a bunch of teams that were on him when he was leaving Japan. He has a really impressive body of work that he can pitch teams on now, even if the end of this past season was a little disappointing for him. So I think, the Cubs felt short in October when they looked at their pitching staff, particularly their rotation. So they're going to go out and sign multiples. It sounds like they'll take it slow with Justin Steele. But he should be ready in the front portion. They're going to be healthy, but when you add in, Javier Assad, whoever they sign, Matthew Boyd, Jamison Tyone, Cade Horton, like that, I'd be knocking on wood here, right? Like that's kind of what Cubs executives do whenever we talk like that. But you got to think some of the Colin Ray might wind up in the bullpen. However, Craig Counsell pieces together the out getters. That you take all these things together, maybe it's not as daunting as it seems when you lose, 4 of your top 5 relievers from the playoffs. And I mean, Jed and Carter essentially said what we thought they would say of like, this is an opportunity. Like I think they're more excited about going out and finding new pieces rather than sort of paying old guys for what they've done in the past.
Yeah. The one area that I do think where they're probably, a little disappointed with what they have is the young guys for the bullpen. That they don't have like this. I mean, think about what was it 2 off seasons ago when Jed said the dream was to have a homegrown bullpen. He doesn't really have that, and he doesn't have like the names to kind of
shattered dream.
Yeah. Daniel Palencia, great story. We'll see if Porter Hodge can bounce back. We'll see if Daniel Palencia can repeat his season because that's hard to do. But other names like, Luke Little hasn't lived up to the hype, and that's very normal. Like relief prospects aren't, like that's not a common thing. So it's hard for everything to come together. Palencia took years for everything to come together. There are other young pitchers who's, like they have stuff and it's like, well, why don't they get the results? And it's they don't have the stable of young pitching that I think they'd like to have. And that's something I think they'll work on in the winter, and then maybe even in the season is kind of making sure that they have their processes right and start developing more pitching. But that's just all the more reason why they have to lean on the things they got right last winter. There's confidence there, but I think there's also concern when it's like you have to, Jed even kind of said it like, you'd love to have certainty, but you're working with a unit where like the uncertainty is almost like built in. It's like it's really hard to find those super consistent guys that year in and year out. They're rare, and you pay a lot of money for them. And the Cubs don't do that. The Cubs aren't the type to do that. Patrick, you look like you're freezing up on me, so I'm gonna wrap it up unless you got something to say. All right, everyone. Thanks so much for listening. This is Northside Territory.
I can't blame it. I can't blame the wireless on the hotel.
Yeah, it's just leftover struggles from Vegas. The internet is hungover as well. All right, thanks for listening, everyone. This is Northside Territory. Make sure to rate, review, and subscribe. Subscribe to the YouTube channel and subscribe to The Athletic, where Patrick and I are on top of all things Cubs. Thanks so much for listening, everyone. Take care.